Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Finance Live podcast. This is your host, Dr. Anthony Crenita IV, also known as Dr. Finance. We have a very special guest today, Bob Burg. He's the author of The Go Giver, an international best-selling book, and also a philosophy of thinking that you're going to learn about. It's very, very interesting and extremely accurate. So let's give Bob Burg a welcome. Welcome, Bob. How are you?
Hello, Dr. Anthony, or do I call you Dr. Finance?
Oh,
Which do you prefer?
either's fine.
Okay. It's great to be with you.
Same here. Same here. Well, Bob, let's get started. First thing that we would like to find out about is yourself. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, in a few minutes or so, just about you.
Very quickly, I began as a broadcaster, first in radio and then in television at a very, very small ABC network affiliate in the Midwestern United States. Was not particularly good at it, and it wasn't long until I like to say, graduated into sales. The challenge was that I had had no formal sales training, and the company I was working for had none either. And so I was really on my own, and I floundered for the first few months until I was in a bookstore one day and found a couple of books. This is 40 years ago now. The books were by Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins, and those are, of course, two of the sales icons, of that space. And I went through their books, and I mean, I really went through their books. I studied and I practiced, and I just really delved into them, dove into them, and really within a few weeks, my sales began to really go well. And this was encouraging to me because it said that if you have a methodology for accomplishing a goal, you can pretty much accomplish any goal within reason, of course. I'll never be, third baseman for the Boston Red Sox, though that certainly was my dream when I was a kid. But so, having a system doesn't do everything, but it certainly helps you in those ways where it legitimately can. And sales is certainly one aspect, just like money management and also and wealth creation and so forth. So I was able to do quite well in sales for a while, work my way up eventually in another company to sales manager, and started being asked to teach other sales teams what was working for me. And as they used to say on the Seinfeld show, yada, 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 30 something years later, here we are talking.
Excellent, Bob. So let's try to take this chronologically. So you're in Florida right now. You're living in Juniper, Florida. Is that right?
Yeah, Jupiter, like the planet.
Oh, Jupiter, Florida.
Yeah.
But are you originally from there, or where were you?
No. I grew up in Massachusetts, and got down south as fast as I could. And the reason I say that is nothing against the people in Massachusetts. It's a great place. It's just cold, and I'm kind of a wimp, and so I like the warm weather. It
Mhm.
suits my style, and I could pretty much, as a speaker and author, I could live pretty much anywhere, and I choose to be here.
Well, that's good. So, all right. So you moved down to Florida, and you've pretty much been here ever since, right? That's where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been here about 30, a little more than 30 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not too far from your old neighborhood. I'm a Philadelphia resident, so I'm here in South Philadelphia on and
Yeah.
off most of my life. So, but I love visiting Florida.
Yeah. I think our guys are playing each other right now, the Marlins and the Phillies.
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh. So Bob, before we get into your book and your concept, I just wanted to. One of the things I noticed about you, and uh, I saw that you were a Golden Glove winner in boxing. Is that right? Can you tell us a little about that experience?
Yeah, well, that was I think I was 19 when I won those titles. Yeah, and that's what I did. I actually grew up, I loved baseball, but again, that wasn't where I was gonna really do any good, unfortunately, because I still, to this day, I just love baseball. It's still my favorite. But yeah, I was an amateur boxer and had one pretty good year, and somehow that ends up making it on some of the bios and so forth. So I'm always surprised when people hear about that, but it's always fun to think back.
Well, that's one of the things that I caught my eye because I have I'm a martial artist, been
Ah,
practicing for a long time. Wrestled 4 years in high school, so things like that attract my attention, especially because I know what it takes to be disciplined when you're just one-on-one in the ring. It's about the fighting spirit, and that's what I want to ask you next. Like, how important? And now we're going to tie it into my subject, which is money, and yours as well. How
Mhm.
important is it for entrepreneurs to have that fighting spirit?
Well, I mean, I think that you really hit it when you talked about discipline, because I think that's really what it is. I mean, sure, you have to have that spirit of wanting to succeed, wanting to win, wanting to, whatever you're setting. It all begins with desire, and that's what Napoleon Hill told us on Think and Grow Rich and so forth. But I think it's the discipline to first discover and find the system, the methodology. I define a system
Mhm,
as simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The
mhm,
key is predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, all you need to do is A and continue to do A, and eventually you'll get the desired results of B. That's by the nature of a system. Then you have to have the discipline to take action.
mhm,
Uh, Oftentimes before you feel you're ready, but when you are ready, okay, we're ready before we feel we're ready. You know what I'm saying? And we have to have the discipline to do that. And then we have to be persistent. We have to outlast the no's. And all the times we fall down. A great friend of mine, Andrea Waltz, actually, she and her husband Richard Fenton co-authored a book called a business parable called Go for No.
mm,
And their theme is that, or the premise is that yes is the destination, no is how you get there.
mhm,
And they really did a great job in reframing those no's. Nonetheless, we never enjoy the no's. But I think, and again, it goes back to what you said, that discipline to to say, hey, I don't have to like it, but that is a part of it.
mhm,
And and I'm going to have to do that in order to succeed. And so I think those are important. Then we have to have the belief in ourselves and the belief in what we're doing, that it brings value to the world, that it's a positive, it's something beneficial. So I think when we have that fighting spirit, as you talked about, which really takes the form of discipline.
mhm. Thank you, Bob. So, um, I'd like to go into your Go Giver book. Before I do that, though, I just want to give you a plug, which is well deserved. Folks, Bob Berg, he's one of the nicest guys. He lives by his message. Bob, I just got to say to you personally, thank you so much. We've been in contact probably a couple years now, different sources, and
Mhm.
every time I ask you for a favor, you not only respond, you give me such a great like response that you didn't have to do, but I know you're a busy guy and you took the time out and did it. And I'm just so happy about that.
Thank you.
Um,
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
you really live by what you say, and and the fact that you're here today is just wonderful. So let me show you the book. This book, folks, The Go Giver. Okay, let me see if I get that right. Okay, The Go Giver by Bob Berg was actually referred to me by a friend of mine who's a lawyer. I'll tell you his name offline, Bob, but he says hi, and he knows you, and he said read this. This is like a couple years ago. So, I don't really like to read those kind of books. I'm more of a nonfiction, boring. I like to read boring stuff. I don't read stories. But it sat on there for two years, and I knew I wanted to read it. I just didn't do it. And thank God I had this interview with you because it forced me. I just read it,
No,
and
thank you.
it's what an unbelievable story. I mean, it goes from the beginning to the end. The parable is just so amazing how you put everything together, and
Well,
it's so true.
I got to tell you though, and please pardon me. I don't mean to interrupt. Please
Oh,
forgive me.
good.
All my books before the Go Giver and after the Go Giver are the boring, how to books. These books, the Go Giver series, if it was starting with that first one, was co-authored with John David Mann,
Okay.
and he's the magic behind it. He's the guy who makes. I'm how to. I'm step one, step two, step three. Okay, I'm boring and proud of it. John is a magnificent storyteller. So
Okay.
everything good about that you felt, that brought into the story and the whole, that's John, believe me.
Well, that's good that you said that. Now I have to go back and read your other books because that's in my wheelhouse. We think alike. We read that stuff, so it's not boring to me. It's not boring to you. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you, Bob. So plugging into the book now, in the chapter titled Rachel. Okay, so now that I read this book, I got some questions for you.
Hmm.
You titled it Rachel and the Go Giver. You mentioned the concept of survive, save, and serve. Now, so I wrote 3 books. My last book was called The Survival of the Richest, and I just 500 plus page book on connecting survival, money, finance, economics, biology, and I just thought this was interesting how you had in that order because a concept I created called the survival prosperity sequence. You survive, then you prosper, and there's all these steps in between. I just thought that was so interesting. Can you
Oh,
elaborate
thank you.
more on that concept? Survive, save, and serve. I like the way you
Yeah.
mentioned serve.
Yeah, well, it comes down to those uh those levels of human nature, when we're for Maslow's hierarchy, right? It's first it's just survival, right? It's just but save is also of course invest and so forth, but the alliteration though was the 3 S's, and but it really should have of course been in invest, not just save. And when you think about it, though, serving is really what that's the I've heard it said. I certainly didn't make this up, but moving from success to significance,
Right.
which of course significance is part of success. So but I know what they mean, and I like the saying, and it's not that you wait until you have saved or invested and have a lot of money to serve. Actually, the way you become successful is by serving. The basic premise, Dr. Anthony, of the Go Giver. Okay. The basic premise is simply that shifting your focus, and that's really where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving.
Hmm.
And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some woo woo, way out there, magical, mystical reasons, right? No, it actually makes very rational sense.
Hmm.
When you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and
Hmm.
place it on others, discovering what they need, what they want, what they desire. When you can take your focus off yourself and focus on helping others overcome or solve their challenges and problems, when you're that person who can take your focus off yourself and place it on helping others come closer to happiness, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They
Hmm.
want to be in relationship with you. And this is how people actually build a healthy and sustainably profitable business.
Hmm. Thank you, Bob. That was great. Uh, so on page 65, I liked your comments on the law of influence. Givers attract dot dot dot, and that's why the law of influence works
Mhm.
because it magnetizes you. Can you elaborate on that more? I just like the way you said the
Sure.
word magnetizes, bringing people together. Yeah.
Yeah. So the law of influence, the third law, says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, this sounds really counterintuitive. Maybe counterproductive at best, and even Pollyanna-ish at worst, right? Your influence by how about you place others first? But you think about it, right? And the greatest leaders, the top influencers, the most sustainably successful, highly profitable salespeople, this is how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking for ways to serve, to help, to bring value to others. Now, I think it's important to qualify that statement. When John and I say place the other person's interest first, we don't mean you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr
Hmm.
or self-sacrificial
Yeah.
in any way, right?
Right.
It's simply understanding, as Joe, the protege, learned in the story from several of
Mhm.
the mentors, the golden rule of business, of sales, is
Mhm.
that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And
Mhm.
there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you, to magnetize people toward you
Mhm.
from others than by again looking for ways to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, to make your win all about the other person's win. This
Mhm.
is why givers attract. This is how you magnetize people. Influence, right, is and on a very basic level, influence is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. That's by definition influence, but that's not its essence. The essence of influence is pull,
Mhm.
right? Attraction, pull, not push. How far can you push a rope? Well, not very, at least not very fast or very effectively. You never hear people say, wow, that David or that Susan, she is so influential. She has a lot of push with people. No, she's influential. She has a lot of pull with people, right? And so great influencers, they attract, they magnetize, they pull. How? By focusing on what is going to bring value to that other person. And
That's amazing.
that's the key. That's how it starts.
Yeah, and I don't know if you ever read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and
Oh,
Influence People. That's that was his lesson he preached in there. I mean, it's just it's kind of the first time you hear it, it's kind of sad. It's like, really? Do people really think like that? But it's listen, you can't argue with the laws of
I,
the universe.
I think, well, and that's a great point. Two things about that, if I may. First, I think that Mr. Carnegie's underlying premise in his book, and I remember asking once a Dale Carnegie instructor this, just to kind of test my theory, and what I believe is the underlying premise of his book is that ultimately people do things for their reasons, not our reasons.
Hmm.
Okay. This is why when I speak at sales conferences, right, I'll often begin by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet,
Yep.
right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. And they're
Hmm.
not even going to buy from you just because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. Now, you made a great point. You said, it's just the way it is. It's human nature. Well, it is. And so what I think successful people tend to do is they discover and they find out the certain truths of nature. Again, human nature, physical nature, spiritual nature, financial nature.
Hmm.
Okay. And, I mean, if you spend more than you make, okay, you're not going to build up anything. You can't do it. I mean, it's
Hmm.
laws of economic nature, right?
Right.
Economic law, a law of economic nature is that people will exchange their goods and services for that which they feel is of greater value than the money they're exchanging it for. Now, why else would they? I mean, they're not going to exchange it because they feel they're receiving less value than
Hmm.
what they're paying. Okay, so it's understanding the truth and it's living within that truth. Now, that doesn't mean we let those things stop us. It means we understand it and then we work within those truths in order to advance both ourselves and the world around us.
That's right. Thank you, Bob. And the point about the financial truths, I actually my second book, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance, I wrote 218 principles, exactly how you said it. I boiled it down from thousands and thousands of principles I read going back. I have a bookshelf similar to yours, and I just wanted to make sure that these were accurate to the universe. Forget about opinion. Like what actually is the truth,
Right, right,
right?
right, right. Exactly.
So thank thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. And all right, so I want to respect your time. So I had several questions, but I'm going to try to get this as
Go
consensus.
ahead. We're good.
Okay, cool. Um, well, what are some of the other major ways to attract? So, for example, I believe what you were referring to attention. You were referring to attention or influence when you said magnetize. Are there any other ways to attract besides influence?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it all comes under influence in a
All comes
sense. When
under
you
it.
think of it as moving a person to a desired action, which might be just building a know, like, and trust relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can meet someone in person, you can ask questions about that person.
Right.
I suggest when you first meet someone, focus on them, not on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is attractive. You know, one thing I learned when I not when I was first in sales, but one of my sales jobs, I was on the phone a whole lot. Okay. Not
Mm-hmm.
just prospecting for to set appointments, but I mean building the relationship and closing the sale. It was all through the phone. Here's one thing I noticed really early on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever hung up the phone on me while they were talking. Really an interesting thing, right? I mean, they're talking, they're pretty excited about the conversation.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good
You
point.
know, I'm talking, they're less excited. Now, the same is true on Zoom, the same is true in person, the same
Right.
is true anywhere. So, when you want to attract someone to you in an initial conversation, focus on them. You know, we've all had that. I don't know if all, but I think most of us have had at least one conversation in our life with someone where they let us do practically all the talking. And we
Yeah.
came away from that conversation saying to ourselves, wow, what a fascinating conversationalist that person
Yeah.
is, right?
True.
So I think you do that when you speak with, you know, you meet someone at an event. It could be a business social event or just a social party. Could be the charity event you're attending, and you're talking with someone, and the person's name is Gary, and Gary tells you, you know, we ask Gary what he does, and he tells you he sells copying machines for high end, you know, he sells high end copying machines to businesses looking to modernize and update their blah 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 blah, right? And he gives you a big elevator speech, and then he asks you what you do, and my suggestion is don't hit them with an elevator speech or nothing. Just tell them just plain and simply, you know, I'm an accountant with the so and so company, or I'm a financial advisor with so and so, or I'm a realtor with, you know, Ace Real Estate, whatever, and then go right back to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, at this point in the conversation, his level of interest in you and in what you do can be summarized in 3 words: he doesn't care. He cares about himself and his business. So focus on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, I have a questions I call feel good questions. They're not salesy, they're not prospecty, they're not intrusive, they're not invasive. They very quickly build a rapport. They attract. Okay. They make that person just feel genuinely good about themselves, about the situation, and about you. So asking Gary something like, how did you get started selling copying machines? Or, you know, how did you get your start as an office products professional? If you want to be a little bit more elegant about it. Now, this is not a fancy question. It's not a clever question. It's not a slick question. In fact, it's a pretty mundane question. How did you get your start, you know, in your business, whatever? But how often does Gary get asked that question?
Mm.
How often does he get asked to tell his story, to be the movie of the week in someone else's mind? His own family has never asked him how he got started in his business. And here's you, who he just met, asking him that question. A nice follow up question to that is, what do you enjoy most about what you do? It probably sounds more like, wow, you must have had some fascinating moments in your career. Tell me, what do you enjoy most about your work? Or what do you enjoy most about what you do? Or what do you enjoy about whatever? Now, after a couple of those questions, I would suggest asking what I call the one key question that will separate you and distinguish you from pretty much everyone else he's ever met. And that question is simply, Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospective client for you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, that's just a question that he has not been asked because people are too busy trying to sell him their hats instead of asking how, right? And so you ask that question, and again, you are bringing immense value to him within the space of a few minutes in a conversation. He already sees you as someone very special, as someone of value, and is attracted, wanting to know more about you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bob.
Thank
All right,
you.
one more question on the go getter. I'm sorry, the go giver, uh, which ties into everything I just said. In your Q&A in that book, I think it was I had the newest edition here.
Yeah, it's got a Q&A in the back. And
Yeah, the
discussion.
Q&A.
Yeah,
You mentioned the opposite of the go giver is not the go getter,
right.
okay, but the go taker. So I'm glad that you clarified that because I agree with the way you described that. I mean, how you can't fault the getter
Mhm.
because we're all ambitious that are in this way of trying to attract and get people, but the go taker you is described as the opposite.
Right.
So
We
you
love
tell us a little more about?
go-getters.
Yeah,
Right, we love
there's nothing
go-getters
wrong with a
because
go-getter.
a go-getter is someone who takes action. In fact, there was a great parable written many years ago by a guy named Peter Kine called The Go-Getter. And it was about a guy who was given a task and he went through all these obstacles. It was a brief little parable, wonderful book. And he went through all these obstacles to deliver something that he was supposed to deliver. Actually, I'm confusing that with another great book, A Message to Garcia. Never mind, cancel Claire, forget what I just said. But The Go-Getter was a great book, and he was given a task, and he did the task. So we love go-getters because go-getters are people who take action. They're people of action. They get things done. We're all business people. We know you can have the greatest idea, nicest thoughts, best of intention, but unless action's put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. No, we love go-getters. We would say, we say be a go-getter and a go-giver. Now, the opposite of a go-giver then is, as you said, a go-taker. That's that person, Dr. Anthony, who feels entitled, if you will, to take without having added value to the person, to the process, to the situation. And go-takers tend to be frustrated. See, at the beginning of the book, Joe was a go-getter who was also a go-taker.
Mm-hmm.
During the story, he made a shift from a go-getter who was a go-taker to a go-getter, person of action, who was a go-giver, who was absolutely laser focused on bringing value to the lives of those he touched. And so, go-takers tend to be frustrated because they rarely attain the sustainable success they believe they deserve. They can have some success, of course, but it's harder to sustain because you're really in it by yourself.
That's an important point you made, Bob. Sorry to cut you off. It's harder to sustain. I agree with you. Yeah, go-takers can be successful temporarily, right? In the long term, it just
Very
don't work.
difficult. Yeah, I mean, there's ones that do it, but they tend to be just burned out, and most of their relationships are not very healthy, and so forth. So be a go-getter and a go-giver. Just don't be a go-taker. Stick with that. We're pretty good.
Yeah, good way to put it. Thank you, Bob. How do you feel when you give someone something? How does the go-giver feel when he gives someone something? What's that feeling? Can you describe that?
Well, I mean, I think when someone is focused on providing value to others, I think it's in alignment with, it's congruent with their values. If you look at the happiness, okay, and a dictionary definition of happiness is the mental feeling of well-being, which is pretty much, as human beings, what we strive for. I define happiness a little differently. Just I take it a little more in detail, though I love the dictionary definition. It's totally accurate. I like to define happiness as a genuine and ongoing feeling of joy and peace of mind, the result of living congruently with one's values.
Wow. Did you memorize that?
Huh? Well, I only rehearsed it like a million times. I very rarely ever trust myself to just, remember something after I, and so I think that's really what is. So when we talk, and of course, Aunt Elle, she's the mentor in the next book in the series, The Go-Giver Leader, she talks to about Joe, about it being part of one's character. What you say is certainly important, but it's probably the least important. What you do is more important, but who you are is the most important. That's where character comes into play. But when you're a certain way, you like I say, you give because, and Pindar said this in the story, you give. And again, when we say give, we're talking about value. However, we're defining that in this case. Value's definition is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. But you're giving whatever you're giving because it's who you are. And because it's who you are, it's what you do. It's congruent with your values. And because of that, you take joy in it and you are happy.
Thank you, Bob. That's a good point. Why is giving back so important, though? When we talk about finance, and there's a part of it, everybody thinks, it's about learning how to make your own money and be greedy and all that stuff. But there's another component to it. That's where you enter the picture. You're talking about giving and all that stuff. But from a charitable standpoint and from a self-spiritual standpoint, why is giving so important?
Well, and you mentioned the word giving back. We never actually use that term. And I'll tell you why. And I again, this goes kind of contrary to the general, way the term. And again, definitions are important.
Yeah.
Okay. And the term giving back is something that was maybe about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it started to kind of come into the lexicon of society, giving back. And it was really a euphemism for charity or doing good deeds. Okay. Which we believe in totally, very much. But the term giving back, while it sounds like it's coming from a place of prosperity, I don't really see that because, and again, I'm just talking about the term, because the way it's meant is, oh, you made your money. Now you've got to give some of it back if
Right,
you're a
right.
good person. Well, we would say that's not, you didn't make your money by taking from others. You made your money through giving immense value to
Yeah,
others.
that's a good point.
You received money as a result. That's why we say that money is simply an echo of value, right? Money is an echo of value. So unless you have taken from some, unless you have committed force or fraud and taken money, and by that time, if that's the case, one should be in jail. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but no, otherwise you've earned that money. Now, should you give it? Yeah, of course. That's great. Give charity, give mentorship, give help, give money, give sure, whatever you want. But we don't consider that giving back. We
Mm.
consider that simply giving, and you're doing it again because it's congruent with your values. When you stroke a $10,000 check to the your local animal shelter, okay, you're not giving back to the animals. You don't even know them personally, and they don't know you. Okay, you're giving that money because it's congruent with your values. You feel good about being able to help these deserving creatures. Okay. And so, so again, we would say giving is very important. We just don't call it giving back because we think that sort of creates a kind of a false narrative.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. If I could summarize what you said, so it almost sounds like the concept of double taxation they use, but double giving because you already got your money because you
Right,
gave,
right. Oh, exactly.
and
Yeah.
now we're going to give again. So it's double giving. So thank you, Bob. I know you pressed for time. We have 5 questions left. We can answer in less than 1 minute. Then
You
I'll
go,
close
go
the
for it. I'll do my best to not think too hard before answering.
out. Okay. All right. So very easy, simple questions. First one is, what are your favorite financial books?
The Latte Factor by David Bach and John David Mann. They co-authored that. It's a parable about investing.
Hmm.
So I really enjoy that one. I thought,
Maybe three.
pardon?
Maybe three. Three books.
Okay. Bach's Automatic Millionaire, I think, was really good. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean automatically you're a millionaire. You talked about automatically having money go to different funds and investments and so forth. And then I think Klassen's Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh, that's a good
I
one.
thought that was a great, great book.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so I'd say those are my three. But there's lots of others, and they're all great. Anytime I've read financial books, I've always benefited from them.
Hmm. Thank you, Bob. Great answer. And do we need money to survive?
Sure, in today's as money is utilized in today's world, sure, I would think we do. Not that some people probably could without it, but I'd say it would be very difficult. So yes, I'd say yes, and I think part of the challenge is the negative associations people have with money, and that that the world around us gives us. The messages from the time we're born, it seems like all the messages are that money is this and money is that, and people with money aren't honest, and look, my friend Randy Gage, a great prosperity expert, talks about you go to any movie and it seems like there's always two characters, right? There's the good people who are portrayed as poor and struggling but happy, but they're always being taken advantage of, put down, pushed around by who? The evil rich person.
Yeah,
So the messages we receive from the world around us regarding money, oh my gosh, it's a
it's
tragedy.
very off. Yeah, I agree, 100%. I mean, basically, and it's one of the things I argue. You need money to survive, and the people. It's not the root of all evil. Money is not the root of all evil. It's the people. that are the root of all evil, who control the money. They can be evil or good, right? So it depends on the person.
Money is, money is energy, right?
Yeah,
It's and
just a
again,
tool.
yeah, it's a tool.
Thank you, Bob. Is finance necessary for everyone?
When you say is finance necessary, what do you mean? Do you mean is understanding finance and
Yeah,
having a financial plan necessary?
right.
I would think so. I mean, I think if again, understanding the laws and truths, we know that when you have a plan and when
Mhm,
you respect the process and you're going to increase the odds of the right results.
mhm. Thank you, Bob. I agree. I wrote my first book called The Necessity of Finance.
Yeah.
Two more questions, Bob. What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
I always say when people say to me, "What's new?" I usually respond, "Nothing much. Pretty much the same old thing, only more so." And that's kind of how I feel about the next 10 years. My business partner, Kathy Tagenel, and I have a really neat group of certified Go-Giver speakers. They're licensees who buy the rights to utilize, teach, speak on, and so forth. All my intellectual properties over the last 30 years. The book just went over the 1 million mark. We want to just keep doing that. We have
Wow.
Go-Giver. All of a sudden, I lost the oh my gosh, we have an online we have an online Go-Giver Success Alliance group.
Oh,
And
yes.
so
Yes.
yeah, so we're building and expanding that, and I'd like that to be what I do for the next until I go, and so so all those things, only more so.
Okay. And Bob, why you said that, I just thought of something. Everywhere I bump into, people are always, I just seem to find someone who's always gets on, like, especially Clubhouse. Hey, did you ever hear the book Go Giver? I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, seriously.
Thank you.
And they start talking about it, and it's just great to know that, like, your message is getting through to a lot of
Thank you.
places.
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Last question. What would you like to be your legacy to this world?
Oh, that I pretty much know. I'd like it to be that of an encourager for people to say he made people feel genuinely good about themselves.
Awesome. That's it, right?
That is it.
Perfect. That's great. All right, Bob. Well, I'm going to leave the floor for you. You can say anything you want. If you want to show us your books, or maybe tell them about a website where they can find out more information about you, whatever you want to say, I'll pass the floor to you before we close out.
Oh, I would just invite people to come to burg.com. They can get chapter 1 or an excerpt of any of my books, including the boring ones we were talking about earlier. They're all up there. And also if they scroll down a little bit, they'll see a virtual Rachel's Famous Coffee House, which you remember from the book about Rachel.
Yep.
And they can take a look at joining the Go-Giver Success Alliance mentorship community.
Thank you, Bob. By the way,
My
Rachel, the end of the story made me want to go out there and open up some coffee shops.
Well,
That's how good it was.
read the next books in the series, and you'll see what happened with that.
Oh, okay.
Something probably did.
Something. Thank you, Bob. All right. Well, Bob, thank you again for coming here. Maybe if you can come back another time, I definitely would welcome you here. Maybe we can
Love to.
look at your bookshelves and do a tour of that one day.
Oh, absolutely. As I always say, my house is pretty much comprised of books with some scattered furniture.
Well, thank you, Bob. All right, folks. So we're gonna wrap this up here. You've been watching and listening in the podcast, Dr. Finance Live podcast. This is Dr. Anthony Criniti IV, also known as Dr. Finance, and we have our very special guest today. Bob Burg was here from the Go-Giver. Also, he has a book called Endless Referrals, right, Bob? Was that your first book?
Yeah.
Endless Referrals. Please check it out. Visit Bob on his website and subscribe, follow. Definitely follow Bob as well. And thank you. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony.